you. Welcome to the Life Savvy Podcast. I'm Dr. Roland J. Hill, and I am your host for this bi-monthly podcast. Join us today as we, the real doctors, talk about real things to change your life. We're going to be talking about family life, spiritual issues, life issues, and we're going to do it in real language for you to understand. So we welcome you to our podcast today. Again, I am so excited to be a part of this group tonight, and I believe that you will be blessed by it as well. So thank you for joining with me as we share together in this broadcast. Now I'm going to bring up my friends tonight. Dr. Philip Carey, first of all, I'm going to bring you to the screen. There you go. And then Dr. Clarence Aites. Welcome, my brothers. Welcome, my brothers. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to have y'all with us. And I'm working on this technology side, try to make it, this is for young folks. Y'all know that, right?
Absolutely. That's why we're glad you're doing it.
That's right.
No, I'm trying to make sure it's working right. Everything is working right. Okay, that's good. That's good. So I welcome you guys to the podcast. Am I getting some feedback from someplace? I don't know where that's coming from, but we'll keep moving anyhow. Okay. All right. Yeah. So again, this is the Life Savvy bi-monthly broadcast or podcast. This is the podcast where you have real doctors with real talk about real issues. We're going to be talking about social issues, family life issues, spiritual issues, all with the idea of bringing practical solutions to everyday problems. Now, I want to start by allowing our co-hosts to tell a little about themselves. So I'll start with you, Dr. Carey. Tell us a little about yourself and help us to get to know you better.
Well, I'll be happy to. Recently retired professor of sociology from North Carolina A&T State University. Happens to be the largest black school in America.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Neither did I.
the most significant engineering program. This is where Ron McNair did his
Okay.
studies, the
Okay.
space guy, the astronaut,
Okay.
and many other accomplishments. But actually, this is where Jesse Jackson went to school,
No, I didn't know that.
and his son.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, we have quite a history, and this is the home of the Greensboro Four. They
Now,
started the sit-in movement,
now,
1961.
oh, okay. See, that really is dating us, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, we been there. I was there for about 19 years, and served as a dean at the College of Arts and Sciences, and then move on to my professorship, where I enjoyed teaching social workers, nurses, educators, and what have you. Um, I'm just pleased to be here because I sort of missed the classroom a little bit.
Okay. All
So
right.
I'm looking for some stimulating questions and discussions. And but I would say that I'm a father of three,
Okay.
one girl, two boys. I have about three grandchildren, but six great grands.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're
Mhm.
moving right along. I'm married, been married for 51 years, just celebrated last month.
Amen. Amen.
And
Amen.
it's been a nice ride. Been
Okay.
a nice ride. And just want to make contributions until the good Lord have some other plans. But just happy to be here with you, Roland and Chip. We'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about our history a little bit after a while. Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Well, you are the real Dr. Phil.
Absolutely.
So we welcome you to the program, Dr. Phil, the real Dr. Phil.
Yes,
Yes.
indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
But
Doc,
I was
go
looking
ahead.
at some statistic the other day.
Okay.
I'm Chip. I'm the first African American to receive a master's degree in psychology from the Department of Psychology at Oklahoma State University.
Wow.
Mm.
And from there, of course, I shifted over to sociology. But yeah, that's interesting that it took that long. That was 1970.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So you're a history maker, sir.
history maker. Yeah,
Yes, it is.
yeah. In some respect, the first African American to be appointed and administrated at Arkansas State University.
Wow.
Mm.
I was chairman director of a division of social and behavioral sciences.
Arkansas State. Cool.
Yeah, Arkansas State,
Okay.
right around the corner from where Clinton lived.
Mm-hmm.
I was there when he was coming into ascendancy. But yeah, the Lord has blessed me, man. I've had opportunities to travel all over the country. We love traveling to Europe. Been there 5 times.
Okay.
Mm.
Switzerland is my favorite. But while there, those of us who are um, Christians, you recall that Ellen White spent some time there, and I was fortunate to worship in the church she started at a little town right outside of the capital of Switzerland.
What I think you would be interested, both would be interested to know. I study the concept and have written on the concept of theoeconomism. So I
Yeah,
was doing some research the other day on it, and John Calvin um, made sure that the Christian church was grounded there in Switzerland, and Geneva became I forgot the name of it, this holy city or something like that, where he wanted to implement Christian principles throughout the government.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I want to go there one day.
yeah.
Mm.
Geneva is a wonderful city. Been there a couple of times.
Mhm.
When I was with the Bahamas government, I
Okay.
had to do some advanced studies there at the
Okay.
International Labor Office.
Okay.
So
Well, let me get Dr. Clarence Aites in here. I didn't know your first name until this week, sir.
Well, that's usually how it goes.
Tell us about yourself, Dr. Clarence Aites.
Roland, you're emphasizing the Clarence, but most people know me as Chip Bates. I have been Chip for many, many years, and so
Okay.
I can imagine. People call me Clarence, but it just doesn't. It doesn't. for some reason it doesn't fit, but I've had it all my life.
All right,
Anyway,
yeah, it does. A Chip, it doesn't rain. Clarence doesn't rain. Chip does.
Yeah. Chip is what I know.
but I've been in higher ed all my career, about 40 plus years. Graduated from Oakwood College at the time in business. Phil got me up to Oklahoma State University and did a master's there in counseling. And then there's about 20 years between my master's and my doctorate degree. I did my doctorate at the University of Texas at Austin in higher ed administration. Spent a lot of time as an advisor, worked in higher ed institutions, colleges, universities, community colleges. Worked as an advisor, director of counseling, director of advising. Became a dean at 3 different institutions. Dean of liberal arts, a dean of business and technology. And then did a stint as the vice president in Arkansas, by the way. I was up there in Bentonville, the home headquarters of Walmart and also Tyson's Chicken and some of those folks up there, and was vice president of student services and academic affairs. And then I moved to Atlantic Union College and did a stint there as a vice president of academic affairs. And so, just been up and down the ladder, I guess you could say, of higher ed in terms of some of the things that I've done. My wife I'm a widower. She passed away about 3.5 years ago. I have 2 adult children. One's an MD, Aaron. He's an anesthesiologist. My daughter has an MBA and she's in the finance and high finance. She's up there. And I have 3 grandsons. And so they're all in their 20s, early 20s. And so, matter of fact, one just graduated from Oakwood University about 3 weeks ago.
Wonderful.
Yeah, man. So and my Aaron's son. So anyway, I've just been involved. You know what? Working in higher ed keeps you young.
That is correct.
Correct. You're working with students all the time and young students, more mature students. And so it kind of keeps you on your toes. And I thoroughly have enjoyed it, especially when I was the dean. And like you, Phil, I really do miss teaching. I taught at every institution that I was at.
Exactly.
And even when I became a vice president of instruction, I worked it so I could at least have one class at the classroom. Retired 2019, and again, I do miss the classroom. For me, it's always been exciting. I open the door to a classroom, the lights come on, the curtains go up, and it's showtime.
Action.
That's right, action. I have a great time with my students. So
thank you, gentlemen, for sharing who you are, what you've done, and we asked you these questions because you come with a wealth of knowledge. I'm Roland J. Hill. That J is my mother's maiden name. That's what it stands for, Jackson. I'm the only one in the family that carries my mother's maiden name. And so when I sign my documents, it's always Dr. Roland J. Hill. I'm a pastor by calling and profession, did that for 33 years in the church on the front line. I spent, like you guys, I was in higher education for 8 years, loved it, enjoyed teaching. In fact, a number of my students are serving the World Church in different capacities. Been married. Phil, I haven't gotten to 51, but I'm coming up on you.
Come on.
Here, my wife and I celebrate 49 years.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Years. And we're unapologetically happy.
As you should be.
Yeah, right. We have 2 adult children. Our son is a hospital chaplain, married to a hospital chaplain. Our daughter is in the online space with pharmaceutical training and counseling and that type of thing. We have 3 granddaughters, and my wife and I started out young, so our granddaughters, beautiful granddaughters, the oldest is 25.
Oh, wow.
The middle will be 23 next month, and the baby will be 18. So my grandchildren are women now, and they're beautiful women, and we enjoy sharing time with them. We'll let you know, to our listening and watching audience, we'll let you know more about us as we go along. But we just wanted to give you a little snippet of what we're about. Now, we talked about as a group why we were doing this program. So I want you to start out, Chip. We got into discussion, and what was our rationale for starting this program, this podcast? If you
Well,
remember.
yeah, if I remember correctly, you and I were talking about how do we make contributions back to our communities. In the paths that we've been through and professions that we've been in, we've learned a lot. We've worked with our students, but then as retired folks, how can we get involved? You and I talked about sometimes there's not a lot of opportunities for retired individuals to really make a contribution like they were making before. And of course, there are a number of reasons for that. Some folks just feel that, we're kicked to the curb and we have nothing to contribute. How they could figure that out, I don't know. After 40 years of experience.
Right.
But as we discussed, you brought up the facts that, we need to do something as retired individuals, lending our wisdom, our experience to others, and let them decide what they want to do with it. But being retired doesn't mean that we're non-active. Okay. We still can be active. And I think that's kind of what's the impetus for starting this program.
Now, Phil, we talked about in our earlier discussions before we launched this program about how in the past our communities were blessed with an oral tradition.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little about that and why what we're doing is significant.
Oh, great. Glad you asked that question. The oral tradition pretty much springs out of intergenerational communication. And I think that's somewhat lacking today. I don't know about you guys, but I think I'm observing that, where you have younger folk being comfortable talking with older folk, not from a counseling or
right.
Here's what you should do kind of a point of view, but from a communal, man to man, woman to woman type of thing. I think what they may not know is that we already not accept you as an adult. You have
Right.
no to lose. So I find myself practicing this with my boys, and sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable, but I try not to show it.
Okay. All right.
So I think that's important because you and every time I have a conversation with them, I do hear that I didn't hear that before. I didn't know that before, But you're passing on experiences, and it's helping you to recall significant experiences that have passed through your mind, or you haven't really settled on it. But when you can articulate something, it becomes a little bit more real. So I think that's very important, and I think that's been lost because of the various types of struggles we've had society-wise, and haven't taken time out to take care of ourselves, take care of our institutions, our families, and I think this is why this is important. We can recreate.
I was having a conversation with my granddaughter several months back, and it became clear to me that these intergenerational conversations we're just not having. And so we're losing the wisdom in the ages from a generation that is not exposed and doesn't know what we've experienced in the past. Okay. And so for me, I felt this podcast was critical to continue to pass down solid wisdom to help the young people know where the stones are.
That's right.
And I know it's difficult for many in this generation to really see the value of the wisdom of the years, but we still have a responsibility to put out there. And Chip, you said it right. They can do with it whatever they want to do with it, but it's our responsibility to put it out there. When I was coming along, I was advised by my parents to spend time with older people. And it is out of the time that I spent with these older people, even going through college, that it gave me what I'd like to say, wisdom beyond my years. And I'll be honest, that wisdom kept me from getting sores, scars, and wounds that I would have gotten had I not known the journey ahead of me.
Yes.
Yeah. And one of the concerns I have, and let's talk about this for a minute, in the scriptures, because I'm a pastor. So anything I do, brothers, is going to always be in the context, and viewers is going to always be in the context of pastor, as a pastor. By the way, I was called to be a pastor when I was age 6. That's right. And that's all I've ever wanted to be. I practiced being a pastor. I practiced in the backyard preaching to my sister and her dolls. I actually baptized her 1,000 times. She ought to be saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost now.
On the way to heaven.
Right. But I say that because I look at the Bible and I see what the Bible has to say. And there's a story about Rehoboam when Solomon was turning the kingdom over to him. And he gave counsel to go talk to the senior men. But Rehoboam, and that's in 1 Kings chapter 12 and 2 Chronicles chapter 10. I encourage my viewers to read that, because there's a Rehoboam complex, I think, that at least appears to me among the generations that we're dealing with now. They're speaking to their friends and their colleagues,
Yes.
but they're not speaking to the seniors where the wisdom is.
Right.
And it presents a problem, because what, at least I'm thinking, this is my view, they're pooling lack of wisdom. I wanted to say it another way. Can I say it the other way, brother? They're pooling ignorance.
That's right.
I think about the things that I did not know in my youth. The ignorance in the sense that I didn't know. Okay. And I needed guidance to go along. So let's talk a few minutes about this Rehoboam complex or problem.
Could it be that they are pooling ignorance, like the blind leading the blind?
Yeah.
And they are ignorant of their ignorance.
Okay. All right.
So they're really victimizing themselves. And sometimes they want to throw that blame externally. But when you don't know, you just don't know. But you need to know what you don't know.
Right.
That's where we come in.
Well, and I think also, when we were growing up, gentlemen, we had contact with people, and I think there's an element that's missing from the youth. Their devices, they're always on the devices.
Wow.
They're taking in information, whether it's fake or not, but they're not getting that social interaction that we got in. We didn't have those devices. So to get information, we had to talk to somebody. Somewhere, if it wasn't our parents, uncles, aunts, our extended family, and including friends who didn't know any more than we did.
Right.
But there was that social contact. I guess what I'm concerned with is that there seems to be, even with my grandsons, 3 of them, that they're on their devices all the time. And of course they'll call people, they'll text. But running through TikTok and the younger folks have gotten away from Facebook. They say that's an old person's outlet. On TikTok and some of these other things. But again, they see things, they hear things, but I think they're limited in their social interaction, and to be able to really sit down and look somebody in the face and see their expressions as they talk. Especially when they're trying to make a point, that seems to me to be lacking. But again, they want to stay with their devices, and they feel that what they get on their devices is the gospel, and oftentimes it's not.
I see I just looked on my chat box, and my cousin is on. Hey, Kim, good to see you on there. And she's my first cousin. Her daddy is my daddy's brother. Hey, good to see you, Kim, and there are a few others that are coming on. Praise God. Yeah, and when I use the word ignorance, and I'm not using it as a slight. My concern is just a lack of knowledge. Okay, a lack of knowledge. And I look back over some of the, I guess I'll use the word, some of the stupid things I did. I don't know. I know y'all never did anything stupid. That is correct. I know. I
wish that was the truth.
No comments.
Say silence.
Chip, I'm known for being what they call it, the great escape. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also see Jeanette out there as well. Good to see you on there tonight. Yeah, and I made mistakes because I didn't know. That's ignorance, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm gonna be honest, as a pastor, my heart bleeds because I see this generation making mistakes that they need not make.
That's right.
And my mama told me something years ago when I was a little growing up. She said, "Son, you don't have to learn everything in the University of Hard Knocks."
Hmm. Hmm.
And I took her counsel and the counsel of many other seniors. There's some things I don't need to try out
Hmm.
to know that they hurt.
Hmm.
Take for instance, if you tell me fire burns, I don't need to put my hand over that fire to get burned to know that it's hot.
That's
Okay.
right.
So now we we're getting ready to start out this first broadcast, and it's actually for those that are watching tonight. We decided on a topic that is not the warmest topic, okay? And our topic that we'll do for these first two podcasts, and by the way, again, this is bi-monthly. So every other week we'll be on. And we want you to invite your friends. In fact, even right now, if you would, those that are watching on YouTube or Facebook, will you just give us a like? That'll help us know that we're at least making some kind of inroads into your life. Put a like on there and connect to my YouTube channel as well. Tonight, we begin a two-part series, and the title of this Breaking the Silence, Addressing Suicide Among Youth Today. And I want to start by asking my doctor friends, my real doctors. I want to ask you guys, why do you see, why did we decide to start with this particular topic?
If I recall, and Chip, you backed me up here. When we first talked about it, we realized it was a very complex
Yes.
subject matter.
Hmm.
We talked about perhaps causes, and the causes may be located in each or all of our academic strongholds. Causes may be psychological, um, Chip, it may be sociological or sociocultural,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
maybe spiritual or theological.
Hmm.
And I think that the complexity challenge us, and I think I speak for all of us. And that's one reason I think why we wanted to do it. If
Right.
you recall,
And I think also, you know, it's not talked about much. I mean, there are plenty of experts out there, and of course,
Mhm.
Dr. Phil and some of these other talk show programs, with sound bites and everything.
By the way, that's the other Dr. Phil.
Yeah, right, right, yeah, the other
This
doctor.
is the real Dr. Phil. Go
the
ahead.
real doctor.
And so, and I think we were thinking that as Black men,
Okay.
how we might be able to make a contribution in this subject to those who might be listening of color, and because it touches everybody. And so, as Phil said, it is complex, and it's heavy. It's emotional, it's psychological, it's sociological, and there are a lot of factors involved in this.
Mhm.
And so, we want to come along and say, at least get people thinking, perhaps about some alternatives, thinking about some ways of getting help if they're thinking about it, and giving others an opportunity to address the issue, perhaps with friends, if they see some warning signs. Because I think it's easy for people to say, well, no, they're not going through that. They're just having a downtime. Well, are they really? Do you know that for sure? And so we want to make people aware, help people become aware of their surroundings, the people in the surroundings, and to just care for folks who may be struggling, may have an issue that they are having a difficult time coping with.
Yeah.
And by the way, what we are committed to, while we are professionals and doctors, we are committed to plain, simple talk.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave this podcast, we're not going to let you leave with the language of the academy, with nice, cute words. We want to leave you with practical applications
Mm-hmm.
that can impact your life now. We want to talk to you personally. Okay. So I'm thankful that we do have our experiences and our degrees. But what we're bringing to you is more than that. We're bringing, I like to say it this way, we're bringing our hearts and our souls. This is a conversation that we're having. We determined before we went up on this podcast that what this would be a conversation, and we're not going to come with a large script, a teaching. All of us are teachers and excellent teachers, but this is not about teaching you all of the dynamics. We're not going to have a chalkboard and a PowerPoint. This is about a conversation to help. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that made this topic really one that we needed to start off with is because we're seeing so many of our young people challenged with suicidal thoughts and dying.
Mhm.
There are about 48,000 people die each year from suicide.
Wow.
That's a whole city. In fact, I've lived in cities with less people
Yes.
than that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So why?
And so it's a serious issue. I've had to deal with it with the young people inside of my church, inside of my family. It's a real issue. And I think the irony is, in one of the most prosperous ages in the history of the world, we're having more people that are having suicidal thoughts than ever.
Yes.
And I think it's a critical need that we need to talk about.
Mhm.
So, and we're actually coming at it from three different angles. Dr. Field is a sociologist. Dr. Ates is a professional counselor by training, and I am a pastor. Hallelujah. And so we come from these three different areas. So now, Dr. Phil,
Yeah.
um, as a sociologist, why does suicide surface in these kinds of times?
Wonderful question. It's not, by the way, for the most part, suicide is a youthful phenomenon. And I think
Oh,
both of our experiences will take that up. It's a youthful phenomenon. In other words, people who are older generally do not. They may commit virtual suicide. They may have the thoughts,
okay.
but they have sense enough to call somebody, or they have the social routings or mooring that they'll get be perceived and get some help. But young people, I think, are more at risk right now.
Yes.
I think you cite some of those. But history does repeat itself. Just a little bit of history. The Industrial Revolution began about 1776.
Okay.
And they noticed at that time, and this is the time that really sociology got started as a science. They noticed a great social upheaval with respect to the social institution, and Chip touched on this, the nature and quality of social interaction.
Mhm.
So anytime we have major inventions within the natural world and others, but primarily within the natural world, we do have some social consequences. So the only thing to look at when you look at the industrial revolution, that is the introduction of machines into the workplace and displacing of people and so forth of labor. The digital era is very much akin to the industrial revolution in terms of social impact, dysfunctional social impact.
Hmm.
I can tell you that many of literature talk about young people running around the streets of England, Italy, and later on America as dogs and cats.
Hmm.
Why? Parents are working. They're in a job. Before that, you never had that. You have people working on the farms and they're together all the time, all day.
Right.
And also, we had no established schools, particularly in America. Higher education is where education began in America, not the elementary and secondary schools. So we have this kind of, again, right back to where young people are teaching young people.
Mhm.
Wow.
And so I think that's the social, we have not accounted for that. And Chip said a lot. I can. Many don't have the social interaction,
Mhm.
friends. They miss more than half of the communication.
Yeah.
Then you have a virtual communication. That's not real. You got to see the tone and tenor of the mood and the of the conversation and facial expressions and all those kinds of things, which conveys lots of useful information.
Mhm.
So
And
now, Doctor, go ahead, Doctor, because I was going to ask you, Chip. Go ahead.
well, and I think another part of that, even in our generation, even with my own kids, dual career couples working,
Okay.
and then if they're they're dropping off. I have a friend of mine who has a daycare center in her home, and she's available. She starts at 7 in the morning, and then the children at her place have to be picked up by 6.
Mm.
Times, she by 7:30 everybody's there. And so so you have kids kind of growing up displaced from home. They're being watched, they're being taken care of. But as we grew up, I grew up, and my mother worked inside the home. She didn't work outside the home. My dad worked, and so when we were there during the summers and we came home from school, my mother was there. And so we have this generation of folks who are in institutions, and they're being taken care of, but they're not spending a lot of time at home. And so, where are they getting? Dual career couples, and then people, working long hours, those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. You got latchkey kids. I remember when my kids, when we were living in Cedar Hill, Texas, they were going to public school, and both my wife and I were working, and we made arrangements. They were dropped off at the bus, by the bus at the house. My little girl Erica had a key to get into the house, and 30 minutes later, my son came. And of course, when she got there, I said, call me or call your mother. I made sure we talked to her, and I stayed on the phone with her until my her older brother got there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had neighbors looking out for them, because my wife and I was working. I'm not saying that can be detrimental, but who knows?
The challenge.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when you're trying to keep food on the table and a roof over your head.
Right.
And then you try to spend, if you will, spend much time with you can in the evenings for a short period of time, and then you spend the weekends with them. You're trying to keep them on track, but then you don't catch everything. You're not able to observe your child. As they grow up, and so how do they handle when a young girl is at school? How do they handle, or what do they think about when a boy is trying to hit on them? Or when there aren't any boys trying to like them, and
Mm-hmm.
their friends who have boyfriends. Same way with the guys, they get isolated and all that kind of stuff. They may even get made fun of. I guess what I'm saying, again, it's complicated. There are a lot of things involved, and for whatever reason, some youth fall through the cracks,
Yes.
and they have not learned how to cope. They're in a lot of pain emotionally, especially if they've been bullied. I will talk about that a little later on. And so, how as a young person, I'm having so much stress. I don't know how to deal with this. What is the result? How can I alleviate the pain, the emotional, psychological pain?
So let me jump in here, Chip, because you said something I think is critical. What is the setup for suicidal ideation?
Hmm.
And either one of you can answer this question. Because what I'm hearing you saying, Phil, you start talking about the social dynamics. And then, Chip, you begin talking about some other issues, the bullying and all of that. So what are some of the things that create an atmosphere for suicidal thoughts?
I'll throw it back to Chip in a minute, but a couple of things I'd like to say.
Mhm.
Number one, they don't get to see parents solving struggles.
There
Uh,
you
They don't get to participate in that. I mean, realize, remember, children live what they, children do what they live.
That's right.
Children live what they live. So, and I, coming up, and I've been a couple of years before you guys, I saw my mother struggle.
Mhm.
Every, I
Mhm.
hated quiet talk and complaints. And I picked up on how do you avoid, how do you solve, and really, I picked up on hope. I'm saying if she can do it, I know I can do it. You know what I mean? So that's a thing. And again, Chip touched on that. He's touching a lot of stuff here. Follow up here.
We're just having a conversation.
Yeah. And then this business, what you talk about, Chip, the issue of I forgot my thought. Listeners, that's a part of the deal. We forget.
That's correct. Well, you know,
And we're not embarrassed.
It'll come back to you, Phil.
Listen, I thought it was just a senior issue, but these young folks forget too. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, and of course, you know, what is I wrote it down. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. You know, I was kind of looking at some of their material, and you know, they were saying that there's not just one common factor, but I like the statement that they did make. It said depression is the most common factor. And so, you know, a lot of the youth, you know, they get down. And so because of what's happening in their lives, what's happening at home, if there's a lot of negativity, you know, he's usually becoming depressed, you know, and in such a way that they don't have an answer to get out of their situation. So,
Yeah, the point I was going to make.
Go ahead.
John Chip.
So that shows you're young because it came back. See,
Yeah.
if you were old, it wouldn't come back, sir.
They are generally trying to escape psychic pain.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Which is worse than physical pain. You all know that.
Mm-hmm.
No, say that again, sir, because that's important.
Psychic pain is worse than physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Physical pain, you can pop a pill or whatever, and you're not embarrassed to talk about it. But psychic pain, sometimes you don't have the language to express the feeling, the pain. Then number two, it's a confusing thing. You don't know why you feel this way. So escape.
No, when you say that, Phil, I've talked with a number of young people of 20, 30, actually 18, 19, 20, and they're really struggling with depression, man.
Yeah.
You know, so you're on to something there. My cousin just put something on the chat. She said children now are looking for temporary solutions.
Yeah.
And that is correct. Temporary solutions to a long-term problem.
Yeah. Okay. Chip, in your profession, also, do you have, in medicine, we have juvenile diabetes. Do we have juvenile depression syndrome?
Oh, yes. Yes, there is. You know, again, especially around these issues, as I've talked about before, relationship issues, bullying. You know, kids are being bullied. You know, at all up and down the strata of ages, whatever age that they have. And so, especially because just think about it, you know, in terms of being juvenile, it's what's that term? Tween. You know, you're still a child, but you're not an adult yet.
Yeah.
Adolescent. Adolescent. And so, how, if you haven't been taught by your parents, because that's where you're living, how to negotiate and navigate some of these struggles you're having, then, I mean, you know, they're just in a hard place. They are truly between a rock and a hard place because they're getting inundated. They're not feeling good about themselves. They're not feeling good about their environment. And so the pressure is increasing. The psychological pressure is increasing. And so if they don't get help, I mean, let's think about an adult, you know, divorce. You know, it's just a very difficult time for people. And if they're older and wiser, you know, they seek some counseling. Where does a child go? Where does an adolescent go? Where's the teenager go?
Well, you know what, brothers? We are moving toward the end of it. Moved faster.
Just started. Man, you got much more stuff to talk about.
Well, that's why we have to pick it up in 2 weeks. We'll come back and we'll continue this program. We're inviting those that have been watching to share this with your friends, your colleagues, your young people. Listen, we're talking from a heart. This is an unscripted podcast that's committed to helping. One of the things we said at the top of the show is that we're talking real talk about real issues, but with practical answers. And we're coming back next week. We're going to continue our topic on suicide. Dr. Phil, you mentioned in our preparing for it that there are different types of suicide.
Yes.
And I think it's critical because we leave it with just physical suicide, but there are other suicides that people are doing. And next week we'll be talking in the next 2 weeks, we'll be talking about this on our next podcast. And we encourage you again to press the like on the button. We're not motivated by your like. We know who he is already.
Yeah.
We just want to know that you are watching and you're sharing and you think it's healthy. And then subscribe to the channel, because what we want to do is continue to build this audience so that we can make a difference worldwide. We're in the season of our lives where legacy is more important than applause. And that's what we want to do with you. So we end our program with telling you again, this is Life Savvy, real talk with real doctors about real things. And we will see you on our next, when we gonna meet again, brothers?
2 weeks from today. Yeah, Wednesday, 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks, we'll be meeting again. So until then, we invite you to stay tuned. Remember to share it with your friends. This is an important show, and we are Live Savvy. I like that title, brothers. Live Savvy, because we got life even in our senior years.
Amen.
Y'all later. Bye now.
Thank you.